We are in conversation with Abhishek Poddar of Macquarie Group. He's of course leading the country's practice here in India. They, along with their partners, have done a very big, committed a very large sum of money, almost $1.5 billion towards the EV landscape, including vehicles as well as the infrastructure around it. So we are conversing about what's the road ahead and what's the structure like and what is this business Vertelo all about. Abhishek, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me over.
Talk to us about, this is a big, kind of approval coming in from a bank such as your $1.5 billion in a single transaction. Talk to us about Vertelo first, explaining us what is the structure and who are your partners along, how much money is being committed?
To explain to you about Vertelo, we have to go back a few years when we really started talking about this.
Okay.
And as we were conversing, we wanted to take a position and do something in the Indian electric vehicle space, primarily because we were so convinced that the underlying opportunity of the transformation of the Indian automotive space to electric was large. When we started looking for the opportunities, and we looked very closely for various transactions, honestly, we didn't find anything which was big enough to find the interest of large-scale investors like ourselves. We said, if it's not there, let's create one. And hence came the idea of Vertelo. And what Vertelo is trying to do is actually enable a seamless transition, especially the heavy transportation side, the buses, the trucks, the four-wheeler fleet, from the ICE or the diesel environment to electric. And for enabling the same, systematically address all the constraints that goes with it. Constraints are in form of capital availability, which we will address through leasing and financing. Constraint is in form of charging infrastructure, so we will set up the charging infrastructure for the fleets that we deploy on the ground. The constraints are in terms of battery and how do you take care of the battery when they run out of juice. We will be partnering with various folks to enable the right availability of the batteries. And constraints are in terms of technology and obsolescence risk, what happens on the residual value, and hence we are working with our partners. So Vertelo enables an easy migration for operators so that they can focus on what they know the best, which is handle the asset and manage their customers. For doing so, we've already tied up with a few OEMs in the market. We have created a strategic partnership and MOU with Tata Motors to buy up to 2,000 four-wheelers over the next 3 years. Another 2,000 buses that we're looking at buying from JBM Motors over the next 3 to 5 years, and a similar quantum from Eka Mobility as well. We've also announced our first transaction, which is we are leasing 44 electric buses to Chalo Mobility, which is a very large travel aggregator in India. And these are the JBM buses that you'll see on the streets of Mumbai, hopefully reducing the pollution levels that some of us have come to see lately.
Sure, I understand. So essentially Vertelo is a platform which brings all the stakeholders, OEMs, operators, battery, charging infrastructure together and then scale it up. You'll start with in Mumbai and take it across the country. What is the scale-up?
Yes, that is correct. You're absolutely correct, because when you kick-starting an industry, you need to bring the entire platform, because if you address one, the constraint moves to some other part of the value chain. So that's what we're trying to do. Our first transaction is in Mumbai, but our play is pan-India. There are a few active discussions that we have ongoing, where we will find our assets being deployed in other parts of the country.
If you could explain to us how the $1.5 billion come into this vehicle. And I'm also keen to understand what is the ownership of Vertelo. All the stakeholders will have stake, or the founding stakeholders and your partners have a stake, and what kind of IRRs are we talking about here at scale?
Yeah, of course. So in order to capitalize Vertelo, we are looking at putting in about $400 million of equity in this platform. Green Climate Fund, which is a UN entity, they have committed to invest about $200 million of their capital, and we are looking at bringing another $200 odd million of our investor money in order to capitalize. And over time, we will be raising debt in the market to meet the aspirations of $1.5 billion that we are talking about. This entire platform falls within the Macquarie Asset Management. So this will be managed by Macquarie as the shareholder.
Macquarie India.
Macquarie Global. We work as one Macquarie Global.
So when you say investors will also hold a pie, your investors in India or globally?
Global. Our global investors. The pool of capital that we're bringing in are the global investors out here. But Vertelo has its own independent management team. Sure. So the CEO of Vertelo is Sandeep Gambhir, who was till recently the CEO of Oryx India.
I get it. And what kind of IRRs are we talking about here?
As you would expect from any private equity kind of an investment.
Okay, great. Talk to us about how this opportunity can be scaled up. What are the numbers? Give us some numbers at least. Over the next 5-7 year period, once you have a use case here and whatever challenges you are meeting, when you understand them and you plug them and you scale it up across the country, what kind of numbers are we talking about?
The numbers are just mind-boggling, honestly. If you just look at the size itself, if you even just talk about buses, right, which is just one of the segments which has just started off. Today there are 8 lakh buses on the ground. Right? Every year there's 80,000 to 1 lakh. Government has set a mandate, a target of 40 to 50% of that transition to happen by 2030. Even if half of that happens, you're talking about easily 2 to 3 lakh crores of investment to go about this. It will be even more. And this is just one segment. You look at logistics, which is trucks, that is multiple folds in terms of the size, right? There, what is missing is the right product. And we are working with some of the OEMs to bring the right products that suits the requirements.
Okay, let's talk about, because we work with a lot of OEMs ourselves on ET now. Some of them you tied up with, they are regular on our channel. I want to understand which part of this entire initiative was the highest challenges perceived. For example, you spoke about the risk of obsolescence, especially in the battery side. It's like a moving target. Now, and there are very few battery storage providers in the country, 2 of them the major ones. And their all initiatives were being questioned to a certain extent till some time back. Last week, one of the large battery companies actually saw big tie-ups happening.
Correct.
So people, had, okay, this now is moving to actual stage, right? Correct. There's a sign of, then your OEMs are doing good job, but what about charging infrastructure? If you could share some light on the challenges which exist there, which need to be addressed, and you guys are.
Yeah, absolutely. And charging infrastructure is a huge constraint today because the classical chicken and egg.
Sure.
How do you set up charging infrastructure without having the fleet on the ground?
Companies like Tata Power and some others are doing good job, or you think variety of companies?
I think they're doing a good job, but not to the scale. Just India is a huge market, right? And I don't, if you're an investor, you would not just go and invest and assume and hope that the business will come through. And that's why charging infrastructure is such an integral part of our entire solution. From a CapEx perspective, it's actually not going to be that very large. But when we are setting up the fleet, to make sure that the fleet operators know that there is an available charging infrastructure where the buses or the trucks or the four-wheelers can come, charge, so that they are not losing out on utilization, is one of the biggest comforts, right? So you're absolutely correct. Charging infrastructure is a huge constraint, which we are addressing as part of this platform. Batteries is another massive constraint because even today, a large part of the supply chain is still very China dependent, right? And I'm hopeful with a lot of focus on domestic battery manufacturing, that aspect will get addressed.
All right, great speaking. Thank you very much for inviting us, and we'll have a longish interview with you and interaction around the India infrastructure story sometime. I look forward to that as well.
I absolutely look forward to that as well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.